Yes.
Welcome to Cav Cast 2.0. I am your host, CSM NextX. And with me, as always, is your co-host, Burton. Welcome, Burton.
Hello. Welcome back to Cav Cast.
It is good to be back. This is going to be season 2.0, basically. And we have some special guests this week. Some are recurring because of popular demand from our audience. That first one being Mako. Welcome, Mako.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have joining us this week, Borenstein.
Hello.
Unfortunately, we were going to have Talamy, and he might still join us, so I'm going to leave him up there as part of our featured guests. But time will tell. We are just super stoked to be back, and for this CavCast episode, we're basically going to be chatting with some of the veterans that have been here for 9, 10 plus years, and we're just going to kind of dive in to some of the origins, the motivations, the cultures, the dynamics, experiences, gameplay, all that kind of good stuff. And we're just going to kind of have a casual conversation. Who knows how long the CavCast will last this evening. I do want to take this time to shout out our charity event that's going on over at the 7th Cavalry Gaming Twitch channel. So those of you that have or have not seen it yet, definitely go check that out. But outside of that, we're just stoked to have the CavCast back in its entirety. We do have some cool content coming up this year. With the CavCast, we have some additional hosts that will be joining us, some additional guests that will be joining us. We're going to cover a lot of different topics and things like that. But tonight we have our special guest. So let's get started. And I kind of want to jump kind of just down the list to get going. Mako, how did you get started in Milsim gaming in general? Not just necessarily with the Cav, but what kind of piqued your interest with Milsim gaming, and why did you gravitate towards that?
It's quite interesting. So when I first went to Cav, obviously back then, 2012, obviously because the Cav is an age rating of 18 to join, obviously back then it was 16. So 2012, I was coming to the end of school, and I picked up, I had enlisted February of 2012, just came, not long after Christmas. I just got Armour 2 Operation Arrowhead. And so I was, as most people do, they sort of jump around different servers. And it's quite funny because I was just going through servers, joined onto the Cav server. Obviously, it was full, loads of people, but I had no idea what I was doing in the game. I was trying to learn the game, and I ended up just jumping in an A10 and just started flying around, and I ended up getting kicked by the admin just straight off.
You weren't in TeamSpeak.
Yeah. So I didn't even know what TeamSpeak was at the time, so I just got kicked straight off the server. I'm like, oh, okay. So I ended up going on to a different server, and I came back 2 days later, and sort of just sort of play around, and then sort of like a pop-up in the chat saying, team pilots on TeamSpeak, and I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's, so I looked up what TeamSpeak was, joined the TeamSpeak, and then just started talking, chatting to the people in the channel, got onto the correct channel, started chatting to people, didn't keep flying, I just sort of did all the infantry stuff on the ground, and started talking to people, and I think it was after a few weeks, I just really enjoyed it. The community was great. We had a really strong player base. So really got to know people, and then after making friends like a lot of people do, we had recently like a public player called Swan. He joined up after many years of being a strong public player. So and then I joined up, and I've been I've been here ever since. I think it's been about 13, almost 13 years since I joined the Cav. A couple of years of discharge when I was away for learning of college. Like many, you can never really get away from the Cav. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I think I kind of had a similar vein when I joined. It was definitely, through Operation Arrowhead, and I think at the time I was with a clan called Taw, and I think they're probably still around.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like the eyes open to the world of Milsim, all the different operations and things that they were doing. I think the first like mission file that I ever played on was Invade and Annex, which was the bread and butter back in the day, and it was amazing. Like Invade and Annex, and then there was the other game type where you would roll around is like a smaller section. You had to like disarm IEDs and stuff. I don't remember what that game type was called, but it was Insurgency. I think that's it. Yeah. And that was super fun as well. It was just so unique and so different compared to all the like Call of Duties and things of the time. And it was right after that I started playing like what was it? Arma 2, the original Arma 2. I messed with that a little bit because that was like Marines and it was a little bit different. It wasn't all desert warfare, but yeah, it was good times, man. That was like old school. And then I think a lot of that also stemmed from did you ever play I think it was like Operation Flashpoint or something like that?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't get to experience that. I went straight into as Operation Arrowhead came out, and that's really where I started. Because before then, I was really strong at like MMO players. It was like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, like those sort of games, like growing up. And then it was when I started off seeing these videos of Arma 3 on YouTube. And then I was like, oh, this looks actually really fun because there's nothing like it. On the scale that it is, like, because as a kid, like, I had my console, I was playing Battlefield, Call of Duty, but then, going to something like Arma 3, like, it's just so vast in what you can do in it. Even Arma 2, the map's huge, the amount of stuff that you can do is,
Yeah, definitely makes a huge difference. And then, what about you, Bornstein? What kind of got you into the world of Milsim gaming? What was kind of your first experiences?
Well, let's see. I'm 31 now. I joined when I was 21. I've been reflecting on this in the background. I don't even remember buying this game, I'll be honest. I think I heard about the Cav when I used to frequent Reddit. Someone, maybe another Cav member, was like, check out the 7th Cav, Tactical Realism. And I remember I went to... I think we only had one Tactical Realism server at the time. It was on Altus. And funny enough, I would just fly around on the Hellcat. I didn't really even do any ground infantry stuff. And I think I put like 200 or 300 hours of just flying around on the public server, of course without advanced flight on. And then eventually some recruiter was like, you should join. And I did. And I originally got recruited into Bravo, and I did that the first couple of years. And I took a short break, came back, went to Charlie. It's been Charlie ever since, and Misfit, and now I'm Misfit 3 squad leader, which has always been my dream here 10 years later. I have 2,400 hours on this game, which compared to some people isn't a lot, but I've just continuously been playing with people, and I've just always been drawn back to the sense of community, and you get new faces, but you also have old faces, like Burden and Talmy. Guys like that, and I've just been having a fun time. But yeah, in terms of what got me into it, I honestly don't even remember buying Arma 3. I know I was living in Colorado and I was bored trying to avoid college work, and I somehow found this game. And funny enough, it's like the only game I really play. So yeah, so here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's like, I'm sure, just based on the age of most of us, a lot of people probably got into Milsim through Arma back in the day, because there wasn't, and there still isn't really anything that's the same as Arma.
Nope. I'm still waiting here for Arma 4. It's gonna be a long wait. It's gonna be what, 35? 27.
27. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it's nuts. Like, because I joined when I was 16. My birthday's in September, so so I turned 16 like the year before, and then I was leaving school that year, and I'm 29 now, and when I think back up to all those years, like just the amount of people that I've interacted with through the Cav, and there's still loads of people from what I call like my prime years in the Cav, like 2014. There was a lot of people that I still think about today, that because you get close to a lot of people in the Cav, because like you sort of get that group of people that you really get close with, and then sometimes those people leave, and you don't really get to a chance to speak to them again, because if they either live on the other side of the world, so having phone numbers isn't really possible. But yeah, it's just the magnitude of the amount of people that have enlisted, join the Cav, they've been through the Cav, even if it's like a year or so, and then go, like, imagine just if all the people that joined the Cav and just stayed for like the last 10 years, just imagine the size the Cav would be.
Yeah, do you think that that building on community and things like that, do you think that's kind of what keeps you motivated to continue your involvement with the Cav?
100%. I think like most people, like when I first had my first discharge, the only reason I had to discharge was because I went to do an apprenticeship, and where I lived I couldn't have my computer, but every single weekend that I was home I would always just try and jump on, because I think for many people come for the games, but just definitely stay for the people.
Yeah.
Because so many people do like meetups. Several times I think I've been to about 4 different meetups, whether it was going to a gaming convention in Birmingham in the UK, or I think it was 2 years ago, a couple of Bravo 17 guys went paintballing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw those group photos of that.
Yep, and we went paintballing, we went for food, and it's great because it's, you never get, it's a weird kind of dynamic, because you speak to people and you get to know them for so many years, but then you meet them face to face, and it's weird because you have like your own names, but then you still call them by their Cav name, because like obviously Mako isn't my last name, I have my own last name, but you still references people with your Cav name, and it's weird when you have to put like a face to a name. It's a weird experience, but it's great. The community, I've played on many different servers, whether it be Arma 3 or like a Hell Loose server, or like I've played on some other Arma 3 like Star Wars and mod servers and such. but I don't think I've ever seen a community that is like the Cav, not just in what we offer, with our, like awards, meal packs, that sort of thing, but just the quality of the community.
Yeah.
It's definitely like, because I say it to all the people, like we're all strangers when it comes to it, all strangers from different upbringings, different financial, whether it be political, financial, whatever kind of upbringing. But at the end of the day, we're all here for like the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's great because when you have that kind of community, you're really just here for like just sort of the same thing. And even if you may disagree and agree on some things, at the end of the day, when it involves the Cav, you're all kind of trying to do it to improve the Cav or improve the community. And I always say, no one in the Cav in certain positions can have bad intentions. Yeah, people, we all want to improve the place that I call the Cav my second home. Obviously here for so many years, like I call it my second home, my second family, because of the amount of time I spend with people. So yeah, I think those people always, rather people might have like great intentions to improve it. Yeah, some people might have think like that's a terrible idea or whatever. But as long as you can go into something to improving the quality of the community, it's a great thing.
Yeah. Do you think that that's also kind of like what has changed over time as far as the meaning of like why you joined? Just like in general, the culture has built up for you enough to the point where it's like that's what it's all about for you now. Because like you said, you initially joined for the games, but now it's like complete culture shift, right?
Oh, 100%. Like even the culture's changed so much. It's a funny story. So, do you remember the MPOIC Sloth?
Yeah.
Years ago. So back then, when I first joined Private Mako fresh, and I came on, and it was a lot much stricter. Way back then, it was much stricter when it came to like ranks and such and that. Obviously, we've relaxed a lot now, but back then I came into a channel and I read up on when I joined. I like read up all like the different things of like the rules and such, and there's like corporal and it was I think I'm pretty sure it was Sloth. It might have been another MP. But I said to him like he was a corporal. I said like, "Oh, sorry, sir," and that whatever. And he pulled me into another chat, voice channel on TeamSpeak, and he said to me, "He was like, I am. You don't call me sir. I am an NC. I am an NCO. I'm a non-commissioned officer." And I was like, and 16-year-old Maker is like, "Oh, okay, sorry."
Oh, geez, yeah.
It was brilliant, but like like you say, like the culture, like that was the culture back then. Obviously, it's much different now, but even then, they see it as like a role play sort of thing.
Yeah,
That's sort of what it is. Milsim to a certain extent is like a role play sort of thing. So obviously it's relaxed a lot now, but whenever I think about it back then, it's just really funny. But I know for a fact, like there was no harsh intentions me to it. It's just how the culture was at the time. Still not a negative thing. It's just how the rules were.
Yeah, it's changed over time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, the games mean very little to me now compared to them. Like, don't get me wrong, I love jumping on with the guys. Playing a good game, whether it be a Cav game or not a Cav game. Like Helldivers,
sure,
or a few of us jumped on and we were playing Star Citizen the other evenings, and it's great because when it's like games that aren't just Cav supported games, it's great because then you get to interact with people from other AOs, which I've been trying to do a bit more often now. Not necessarily play games, but just try to jump into other channels in Discord,
spend time with them.
Just to interact with other people in the Cav, because I just like to know about people, and obviously I like people to know the name Mako because I'm a very important character.
Well, yeah, you're a recurring character.
I'm a recurring from the demand.
And Bornstein, for you, like what kind of changed for the culture over time for you? Was it like do you feel like you kind of learned rituals or like traditions and like Charlie or Bravo or Alpha that you really clung to, or was it like more about the operations and things like that? Like what kind of was the culture that drew you, and how has that changed?
Well, I think the culture has changed over time. Like Mako kind of hinted at, 10 years ago, the Cav was a little bit different. I think it was more serious. And I think just over time, because we all have gotten to know each other on such a personal level, perhaps we've lost some of that, rigidity with that.
Sure.
And over time, it's just become more friendly, and you get to know your guys on a more personal level. I'm like Mako. I come for the people now. Sometimes I'm playing and I go, man, I effing hate this game. If it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't be playing this. Like if I wasn't in the Cav, I would never touch Arma again.
Sure.
Until Arma 4 came out. And side note, this is my real name, Mako. So. But I've met up with people in real life and shotguns in the Mojave Desert, and had fun. And, it's just, when you have a tight-knit squad like Misfit 3, we all know each other on a personal level. I've had, personal incidences where I've had friends be there for me, which I thought really helped through some really hard times in my life, which when I first joined at like 21, I never expected that to happen. And now I'm really here for, the people and keeping the unit together and just being a core person, right? Like, doing formation drills for the 20th cycle, in the past couple of years for me, it's like it's not fun,
doing for you.
It's not like I look forward to it. I look forward to squad practice, like checking on my guys and just build a cohesive unit, and I think that's what we've done. Now, do I kind of miss the rigidity of the old school sometimes, but maybe somewhere in the middle. But I like where we're at and where we're going. And I'm looking forward to Arma 4.
Yeah, I think
definitely didn't have as much blue on blue back in the day. That's for sure.
That's
there was a lot more PID. But granted, back in the day, everybody was forced to wear the exact same uniform. We didn't get all these mods where you could customize every little detail of your uniform to the point where you actually look like you're from, the other faction.
Right.
And they were all wearing turbans
over time as well. Like, I remember one of my first operations, it was a Bravo op, and we just moved supplies across Altus. And I was on the last vehicle. I didn't see an enemy for an hour and 55 minutes,
Wow.
And just the, I kind of like Mako. I don't know if it's because I was green or scared or what, but, I was just so on edge the whole time. And I still am to some extent. But, it's just moments like those that make me happy with the dudes.
That actually reminds me of a really funny incident when, Burton, you won't remember this. Do you remember the first 24-hour operation we did in Arma? Do you remember Operation Red Bull Clip?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Because it was the first 24-hour, wasn't it?
What's that?
It was the first 24-hour operation, wasn't it?
It might have been. What I remember though is being locked in a tank the whole time. And that's what moved me. That's what motivated me to move to Charlie Company.
Yeah, because it was in September of 2012, Operation Red Bull Clip, and it was it's ingrained in my brain. But there was a dude who had recently joined. He was brand new private. Literally, I think he was like a week out of doing his boot camp, and they put him on by one of the main gates of the airfield that we was at, and they put him on guard, but someone had forgotten about him or whatever, or had to disconnect, so he wasn't accounted for. But the dude was so excited to be like in the Cav and all that he ended up being on this guard on this gate for like an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. And it wasn't until someone noticed him down there that someone went up to him and they was like, dude, like, are you okay? Like, and he was still there, he was still active, he was still watching around, and he was like, oh yeah, no, he loved it because he could see all like the jets leaving the airfield, or like the convoy like leaving the main air base, and he was loving it. But it's just hilarious because like he just stood there for an hour and a half, but he just loved the environment, which is another great thing about like the Arma games. It's a different kind of experience compared to other games, just because of the mass scale of it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, I think that's definitely been one of the big drawing factors for Arma, and that's something that I think a lot of the newer games, like, they have a distinct advantage because they don't have to come up with all of that ambiance and stuff now. Like the way that game engines and things work now, it's so easy to add ambiance in the background instead of having like a Zeus like have to come in after the fact and add like explosions off in the distance. Like most games just have that integrated into it now.
Mm. It would be great if like PlanetSide 2, because that when it was in the Cav, it did very well. I know we did a few things with Sony, because when PlanetSide 2 came out, they had like a live stream that they did like every Friday or something, and
Sure.
they had actually invited they had gotten word of the Cav and that, and they actually invited, I think, the CEO of the PlanetSide 2 company to like attend their live stream as like a talker. And you know, that sort of it's that sort of game where I've always said in multiple places, like if that had a like if that tech was in like other sort of games, like that sort of scale, but like on like a modern, you know, like Armor 3 is, or like say like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that would be such a great game with the like the ambience of like just all the ships and the amount of people. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet. I do hope that Star Citizen gets to the point where it's as vast and immersive as other games that are of similar caliber.
I do hope so. It's, you know, it has the possibility of that. I think with Star Citizen, with what they are developing on their server tech, like the other day, a few weeks ago, they did like a 850 player test,
Yeah.
and it went really well. So I really hope. I think with a lot of their like development issues that they've had, I think once all their like their server tech sort of comes out for it, I feel like you'll see like a big increase in development time. Hopefully, you know, it Star Citizen, so you never know.
Yeah.
But that'd be really cool, because I think the possibilities of that game with not only just like the space aspect with ships, but also just everything else combined. It could be armor free in space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. I think that would be sick. That kind of ties into another question that I have for you guys. Obviously, like over time, the Cav has evolved and changed, and the games have evolved and changed. What do you guys think is like the main difference between someone who's joining now and when you guys joined? Obviously, it's kind of hard to do a comparison with people that aren't here, but just from your guys' perspective, because you guys kind of came up through the system and you guys don't think it's as serious as it used to be, but do you think that they still view us as a serious organization when they join, or what's kind of your thought on that?
Yeah, Boris, you go.
Yeah, you know, I think it's serious. I think it's kind of in the training aspect of it, and through boot camp. Obviously, I haven't gone through that in a long time, but as far as I know, it's still the same. So I think the how it looks from the outside is similar. And once you get to your unit, I think we're a little bit more friendly with open arms these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, I think it's still seen as quite a serious, you know, hardcore sort of community, and like
Right.
Barantine said, like the training, and that though you know compared to maybe to some smaller milsim communities that have, I would say, have some more serious commitments, because there's some others that, you know, require you do like two in-game events like a week.
Yeah.
So I think so. There's a lot more small. I would say smaller units that have a bit more serious requirements. But I think with everything that the Cav is, because like a lot of people would still consider it like a kind of like a second job when you look into like all the work with like the different departments
Yeah.
and just the day-to-day running, because when I think when you really realize the aspect of how much goes into it, you know, trying to keep, I mean, one of the main things, you know, trying to keep accountability of 700 people to account for that amount of people on a weekly basis, you know, even I would say even for some companies, is a difficult job sometimes to keep it accurate, you know, week by week. So I think, you know, with the enlistment process that we have, that can take, you know, around a week. And then you know, you have your roll call, you have your training. To some people that may be kind of new to the either the milsim or just gaming in general, they might see that as quite a serious sort of commitment to make.
Yeah.
But like I say to everyone, like as soon as you make that commitment, it,
Doesn't change much, yeah.
yeah, like if you're just joining to just be a trooper, just take part in the events and tenure section practice, the enlistment process is probably the hardest, like the more time intensive thing you're probably ever going to do.
Yeah.
But I say to everyone, once you join and you've gone through that, I haven't really seen many people that regret it once you become like a part of the community, and even then, being a member just doesn't mean that like you could be a public member.
Yeah.
To me, you're still a part of the community because, like I said, the public player Swan, who's recently joined, he's been a public player for 4 or 5 years. Everyone knows him in the Armor Free discussion. So even then, I would still consider him a part of the community just on that aspect alone.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation.
Right. One more thing, I popped up a memory, but I remember another difference. An example would be, I think one of my first ops.
Yeah.
We had about 40 to 80 people in there, and we joined in, and we all went into like formation. I remember Chance was there, and like all these high up generals and stuff who I'd never see anymore playing, but they were like all telling us to about face and stuff, things we haven't done in years, really. And another thing would be just the time, like the year. It's 2024 now. Back in 2014 when I joined, I remember two of the guys in my boot camp were like, yeah, I just got back from Iraq, literally. And I was like, oh, and they were taking it really seriously. And there were things I learned from veterans that were just coming back from being deployed that today you don't get as much of those guys joining. Or there's not as many of them staying around. Sure, there's guys like that we all know, and Charlie Bravo, that have served or are active. But back then it was a little bit different of a culture, I would say, especially the people in leadership positions, right? Like I'm personally not a veteran, but back then I felt like a lot of the squad leaders were.
They had that real world experience,
tricks and things. Like I was really like a sponge. The things they were teaching and the tactics are some things I try to keep alive now, just from things they've taught me. So that's just something I'm trying to pass down because I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, it's helping like adjust the play style of newer players that don't have that same experience, getting it from you guys instead of from people that were active or whatever.
It is very interesting. Like I've spoken to some people. So like there's one guy at work who's new at work, and he's going off to the British Army to train as an officer. And we were talking about games and that, and I was talking to him about like online communities and that, and he thinks it's weird, like he thinks it's like weird and that sort of thing, and it kind of popped into my head of like how many either planning to be active, current active, or like veteran service members, on how different ones view communities like the Cavs. Because obviously, like you said, like the Cavs had so many military members in the Cav over the years, but then there's some people who would obviously turn their face away to this sort of thing, because obviously they would have like obviously not good like opinions about it. So it's that sort of thing is quite interesting to me sometimes, just of that.
Yeah. Burton, what about you?
You're asking me questions now?
Yeah, you're part of the conversation.
Take part, man.
What are your memorable moments or inside experiences with coming up through the Cav?
Oh man, I've got a couple. I'll tell you what. So back when I first joined, there were these two guys. One of them's still around, but it was Hartman and Kleiman. And
I remember Hartman.
they were kind of the ones that were heading up the Ranger School. I ended up washing out my first attempt going through Ranger School. So I went through again and made it. But I'll tell you what, man, like doing it once was rough because I mean back then it was, I mean shoot, it was something like 7 weeks long, and on top of that, you had to do a bunch of training between the different ranger days, because they tested you on things like vehicle ID by both sound and by visual, aircraft ID, flying aircraft because there weren't enough pilots back then, so we had to fly our own ranger missions, just all that stuff. So I mean, it was one of the most difficult things that I've ever put myself through as far as gaming's concerned. But it was definitely worth it. And then I still remember we were in an operation in Chernobyl, and I think Mako was actually here for this one. Bornstein might have been too, but we were in operation in Chernobyl, and you know how Chernobyl, there's that ocean on the east coast of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were all waiting in the trees next to the MSR just north of a city there, waiting to ambush this convoy that was supposed to be, coming along. And everybody's quiet, tensions are high, people are just waiting for that first audible. You know how that is. And then here comes Ratcliffe running down the middle of the road with a mine detector out of the blue, just yelling at the top of his lungs, "Watch out, boys! There's snipers and mines! There's snipers and mines!" And oh man, that cracks me up to this day. But I mean, there's just so many memories.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think too, because like between the three of you alone, it's like 30 plus years of experience, and then times that by, I don't know, we have somewhere around like 600 members right now. That's a lot of memories, man, built up, and a lot of culture, and a lot of people like adjusting to the way that we do things, but also adding their own flavor over time. Because obviously, as leaders grow and become SLs or platoon staff or whatever, they're gonna instill a little bit of their own flavor into stuff. So it's interesting to like see how that culture and dynamic has shifted. Because like you guys were saying, some of it's away from that traditional just doing formations and movements and going by the book, and now it's just based off of like our personal experience playing the game and what works and what doesn't work within the game. And that's something that I think can only happen in the Cav, because we have those people that are dedicated from real life experience, who have come up, played the games, learned about the games, and like have adapted those strategies within their respective games. So it's like, I don't know. Right. It's fascinating to me that exists in our world, where people have virtual tactics that are specific for a game because it's been around for 3, 4, 5+ years,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've got like something like 240 operations now, and God knows how many FTXs and squad practices and
MCCs.
There's like specific FTXs or operations I can recall out of those 240 where things went bad and I had to learn something the hard way, where I died, my guys died, it was one life, it went sideways. And this is like thinking back to like 2017, 2018, and today, I still, like, for example, if heavy weapons isn't at the front of a convoy, I will bitch about it, because there's a specific memory I have in 2018 of us not being at the front, and I remember what happened. And I will tell people, I was like, this is what's going to happen if we're not at the front.
Right.
And these are like things I will hammer in. I don't, and I will, it changes your leadership as well, right? Like, you learn different things and how leadership works as a soft skill, right? And kind of segueing this topic, like, it's made me a better leader in real life as well, which is another reason I like seeing back. Like, I've grown up, right, now, and gone real jobs, and been in situations where I've been more inclined to speak up, even though I'm like a lower level NCO in this company, right? or per se. And I think if I didn't play Arma, I wouldn't have the confidence or like the wherewithal of like structure. Military structure and corporate structure is extremely similar. If you've ever worked for like a medium, large size corporation, between management, middle management, upper management. And, I've had no problem in past jobs, like going to my manager and being like, we should do it this way. Because I think back to like that FTX I was just talking about, where things went bad, and I reflected on those times after, and I thought, well, why did they go bad? whose fault was this? Was this my fault? Was this Mackey's fault? Was this the XO's fault? And then I go, you know what? It was my fault because I didn't say anything and I knew there was a problem.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had that in jobs where I've like thought about these FTXs and been like, I should speak up, and I have, and it helped. So
Yeah.
that's interesting as well. It's another reason I love it here.
I think it's one thing that never really gets talked about is the skill sets that just being in the Cav can give someone for them to reflect in their everyday life. I've seen some people that said that they've put like their Cav experience on like a CV because I said to multiple people, in my everyday life, like the Cav can give you so much. Like you can give the Cav a lot, but the Cav can give you so much in return. Like you said, they can get the Cav can give you like leadership skills, just general people skills, attention to detail,
Right.
learning some of the things like spreadsheets, or like some like basic like website functionalities.
I mean, just the
Not
accountability too. Like how many people
Yeah.
at the age of 18, because so many people at the age of 18 literally don't have a job sometimes, and they don't know
Mhm.
accountability until they get into a volunteer organization or that first job doing fast food or whatever, And if we can
Yeah.
give them a little bit of experience of what it means to hold yourself accountable and hold others accountable, man, you are leaps and bounds ahead of so many of your peers that are at the
100%.
same age.
Because when I first was in the Cav, in Charlie 17, there was the CO, Jake. I think I'm pretty. Oh, it was Clark. Ben, do you remember Clark?
Oh yeah,
Clark.
Clarky for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a young lad, wasn't he? He was like, he must have been
He-
like 18.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure so I think he was 17 when he joined, but he was 18 when he started getting involved in becoming a cop.
Yeah, so like being in the Cav 17, company CO, and obviously like Armor was still really fresh back then. Like Armor 2, even though near the end of its time before Armor 3 came out, was still wildly popular. So just that alone, company CO, he's probably under him. He's that was probably what like 45 plus guys or something. Having to manage that amount of accountability, not only the platoon lead, he's got his XO first sergeant, platoon leaders, platoon sergeants, the SLs and that below him. Like that's a lot to have to handle as a 17-year-old, while also possibly being at college and stuff like that. So
Oh,
just
it was bigger than that too. It was, I mean, Charlie Company had 4 platoons back then, if I remember correctly.
yeah, so that amount of handling, the skill set, to take away from that, is huge. Like, because I still, the Cav is, a hobby. So there's a lot of stuff that you should be able to take from like a hobby environment, to apply onto yourself, just the skill sets, especially in management.
Yeah.
I think if you're sort of in any sort of management position, really with whatever it is, you should be able to put down a CV and something that you can use as a reference, because not everyone is cut out for it. And not only that, the Cav, I feel, gives a lot to someone, in terms of self-worth, because you hear the term like keyboard warrior, and I see that in multiple different things, because somebody might not have the kind of confidence in their everyday life to really perform, whether that be in their job, in social environment, whatever. But in the Cav, it's a different environment. You could really, I feel like someone's full potential could show more, in that sense in the Cav, rather than their everyday life. So, they could go up to be, for example, like Clark to be a company commander,
Yeah.
XO, whatever, and just by doing that in the Cav could increase their confidence for them to be better in their everyday life. Things like like the awards that we give to people, the custom awards, what we write for people. To some, it's just a virtual award, doesn't mean anything. But just those words are saying this person has done great, they've put the work and effort in, can really boost someone's self confidence
Yeah.
and their self worth, and that could just one of those walls, you could write an armed accommodation for someone, have it on their meal pack. Just that alone could affect someone, and that person could be like, I'm actually doing a good job, and then they go out to do something great.
Yeah.
So I think just little things like that is, it's just great that the Cav can offer.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make. I think whenever I attend any operation, I do my best to pick out a moment from that operation where I think someone earned an Arcom, a Brown Star, a Silver Star, but like there's always a moment in every operation for something. And I think that's one thing that our leaders across the board could probably do an even better job at, is just picking out a single moment every operation and recognizing someone for something that they did, whether it's like they did a textbook maneuver, or they did something that saved the operation from failure, or saved their squad from getting annihilated or whatever. There's always something that's there and worth recognizing. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be an Arcom, something simple, But if they do it perfectly, like, they deserve that award and that recognition, and that's what's going to keep them going, hey, I actually am doing something right here. I've learned, that this is the way to do it. Maybe it's an operation like Bornstein was saying, where someone's like, hey, we need to have the heavy weapons team at the front, and like it pays off, right? And it's all because that one person said something. And that, in my mind, that's worth an Arcom. If they made that call and it made the operation successful, that's so worth it.
Yeah, I've done my fair few award citations for people. Though I'll do a little shout out to Sam.T, because he helps grammar check a few of my citations, because I am not the best in my grammar. So
Sure.
A lot of the time I'm like, hey Sam, do you think you could just check this through, make sure it makes sense?
Give it the old college proofread.
Yeah. So I've done a good few awards, because I think everyone should get at least one. So
yeah. Now, question kind of evolving from all this, because obviously things have changed. The way operations run, the way that people view the Cav, how they act in the Cav. I mean, for you, Bornstein and Mako, how do you guys see like our community evolving over time? Like where do you see as far as the direction of where we're gonna go? Do you think we're gonna get more into like VR milsim type stuff? Do you think it's going to just be more similar of the same stuff? Like what kind of you guys see as the evolvement of milsim in the community?
What I will say is on a platoon level, we've talked about this before when they announced Arma 4 coming out in 2027, and we were like talking about whether we're going to start incorporating Reforger ops maybe, or doing stuff in Reforger more often, or and what someone said, he was like, I don't if we don't do Reforger, I don't think we'll have a full platoon by 2026. We need to keep it fresh enough where people are interested.
Yeah, sure.
And on the other hand, it's like, I've been here so long, like I said, I've done like a raid a million times.
Yeah.
And that's what people a lot of the times come here for, is to blow stuff up and do the big Rambo type
big
stuff.
assault. Yeah.
But sometimes when they go, oh, we're just gonna do like a 3-hour recon, and people go, well, that's boring. I'm like, dude, I live for that, because we haven't done it in so long. So
well,
I think what
it takes
is
so much strategy too.
Right, exactly. And there's different things like briefings, planning stages. And I think what the opportunity is now is to stretch this out until Arma 4 comes out. We need to really like hone in on specializing the details, right? Like making sure if we're going to do a recon mission, we do it well. And or if we do like a supply mission, just change things up a little bit. But when we do, make it engaging, make it interesting. And I feel like we have some really talented mission builders. And when they do unique things like that, I personally love it. And I think that's what we need to see more of, is like just unique types of missions.
Yeah. Not just necessarily like those special ones, because I know we do occasional like Halo ops, and I know like Squad, they do like Star Wars ops and stuff like that. I think, you're right. You have to really go back to those like fundamentals and say, okay, like what's the key here to like a really good brief stealth op, you know, that's not going to be insane to the point where it's like, oh, everyone's got silencers, but like, how are we maneuvering through these elements? How are we reconning the area to figure out the best path forward? You know, there's ways to do it where not everybody has to be a special forces Barbie, but like can really enjoy the operation and feel like they're in a heightened situation.
Right. Like back in the day, a long time ago, when maybe my first 10 ops, I remember doing an op where, of course, you know, it happens to everybody. I was the man on rear security near the whole damn op. And nothing happened for about an hour and 45 minutes. But damn it, I kept watching my sector. And then just in the, you know, in that split moment, this dude ran out of the woods right behind me, right in front of me on rear security. And I mowed that dude down.
Yeah.
And it was so rewarding for me. It's like I only had to shoot one guy.
Yeah,
That
but you
whole
feel like you
operation, and I
saved
felt
the
great.
whole group, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's things like that now we don't get as much of. It's more like full frontal stuff. But
Yeah.
you know,
Big assaults,
just
big
incorporating
raids,
things
yeah.
like that, like making people feel like they're
On
needed,
edge,
right?
yeah.
Even yeah, on edge. I love that, right? Like there's some ops, some of my best ops where I've been on edge were like the earliest ops where it was things of that nature.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because it's wild to think that you could have an operation, right? Like, let's say there's 60 dudes, but let's say the mission controller is only putting down like 2 or 3 guys at a time. It will feel like the scariest op because you don't know how many are out there. Like, even though it's only like 1 or 2 guys that you're running into every like 5 to 10 minutes, that is almost more scary than seeing like 30 dudes straight in front of you.
Totally.
I think some of my favorite times was with the Parry Fire Vietnam DLC for Armor 3. That's probably some of the most like heart rate rising, you know, times. You know, you've got no night vision. You could just be in the middle of the forest, bunch of dudes like
speaking Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, and like,
they bonsai
like,
charge you, yeah.
yeah,
Burning
and
the
like,
huts.
like there was one, it was it was really like a load of moonlight, like you just kind of see where you're going, and like we had like a whole team who were just walking through this forest, and then because of like the traps that they have, like we heard like one dude just set up a trap, and then because of the mod, if you set up a trap, like a dude just starts screaming in pain,
Yeah.
and then another dude set up a trap, and then suddenly we just hear like all the AI just start screaming, and then just yelling, and then just start shooting out of the trees, and it was just crazy because it turned into like a 45-minute just firefight, just trying to survive till the sun came up.
Yeah.
And it's just some of those experiences which is great. But you know, with the question, I think it'll be very interesting on where the Cav will go in terms of milsim. Like, you know, I feel, you know, VR is making huge jumps. That could be something in the future. You know, I still think a Reforger starter might be good to capture, because I feel like a lot of people look at Armor 3 and think, like a lot of people that have Armor 3 now, is, you know, it's an old game. Not many people want to buy it, even though BI said that, you know, so many people bought, you know, had bought all those copies.
Sure.
But I think like a lot of people like buying a Forger to, you know, test the water sort of deal as like a holdout till Armor 4 comes out. And I feel like all those people, as soon as Armor 4 comes out, will just jump straight over to it. So me personally, I think if there was a starter, it'll be like a holding for all those players that play Reforger.
Yeah.
To sort of be in the Cav, and then as soon as we move over, then we're not only moving Armor 3, but then we're also moving over Reforger. You know, that's just me. That's, you know, because, you know, a few people have sort of mentioned about it lately, and but you know, it's, you know, it could be an idea, could not be idea, and I think that's one of the great things is sometimes, you know, if you try something, you know, is there really anything to lose? Aside from, you know, yes, you know, a lot of time and effort does go into it. But with starters, that is one important thing. Yeah, but I definitely would love to see. One thing I'd love to see is a Cav get over 1,000 members. That'd be great. No, I would love to see the Cav go over 1,000 members, but the Cav has changed so much, like we're saying, over the last 10 years, that what's the next 5 years gonna be like?
Yeah.
That's really like, because we've had so many games. We've had Call of Duty, Battlefield, Parasite 2. We had the Star Citizen, the Star Platoon that lasted for a year. It didn't grow huge, but it was still there. We've got DCS still active, squad. Even with the squad, going back to a starter size and then growing to, like, I think they're growing up to like 100 players right now, which is great. And maybe all the future games that we don't know could come out, and hopefully Star Citizen again in the future, because that'd be awesome. So you never
So-
know.
Throughout the evolution of the Cav, I mean, we've already touched base on how it's kind of, lightened up a bit or become a bit more lax since since we all joined. How, like, what would you say the difference is between milsim and chill sim, and do you think the Cav's gotten to the point of being chill sim?
No. No, we're
No.
still milsim. I think we're
Yeah.
still doing things by the book. It's just we're having fun, doing it. We're still doing calls for fire, but textbook. We're still making decisions textbook. And I think it's just leadership, makes that possible. We've got people who know what they're doing, and we still teach things the right way. I wouldn't say it's chill sim. Maybe someone else can help me finish my thought.
Yeah, no, definitely still milsim. Not just the in-game training that we do every week, but also with the S7 training courses that we do, and also the out of game stuff. With all the different departments we have. Things like ODS. The 2-day off the development school with the the assignments that you have to do after that. You've got the server administration course. That's like what, 2 hours or something. So stuff like that. You wouldn't. I think that's definitely milsim when you put it all together. Everything that we do, the different parts of it. Definitely still milsim. I think we're more milsim, just with all the extra stuff that we have.
Yeah.
But definitely, 100%. The structure that we have. Because I feel like chill sim would be you are quite kind of serious in game, but kind of that's where it, but like you're still kind of jokey kind of feel like, but and that's where it is. But with everything that we have with the the sections, out of game and in game, all that together, no, definitely Milsim 100%.
Yeah, like if you're not on point in a one life and you're doing a Halo drop and you don't pay attention to your training, like you're gonna break your legs, you're gonna get lost, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's 2014 or 2024, it still applies now. Right.
Exactly.
And you still need to know, you still need to have your chain of command, you need to be clean on comms, you need to be clear and concise, have plans.
You got to listen
not
to
like we're just
the jump master, like
Yeah, chill sim would be like, just drop me off, let's run and gun, but we're not doing that. We're still having really quality operations.
Even with the with Cap Medical, those guys got to know what they're doing, otherwise, because in that one life up, you go down, those guys, including me as well as one of the medics. If we don't do our follow our checks, then you end up dying in game. And if you're on a one life, like you said, if people aren't doing their stuff, following their training that they do in their section practices and in their S7 courses, if we're not doing stuff right, then you die, and your game's over then.
yeah.
And even then,
Right.
even if it's not in a one life op, if you still die, you still got to respawn, make sure you got your kit, do your pre-combat kit checks, and then you have to get transported all the way back out into the AO. Then that's time that you've just lost because you died. So
Yeah, and that can
Definitely
be
milsim.
detrimental to an operation. If you have, entire squads getting wiped, that just kills the vibe, especially if it's like, oh, there goes like 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it's great for the support elements that are like reinforcing and stuff, but when you have a large mass cast situation, it's like, it can be rough. It can be rough.
Oh yeah.
If you guys, so obviously speaking in, into the future and what's to come, if you guys could change one thing that's, about the milsim gaming industry and their approach to it, what would you guys change?
Ooh,
It's a
That's
good
a-
question.
I know that's a big question because like there are very few milsim games out there. I know like I can't remember this. There's a YouTuber who does a lot of Arma streams and things like that. I can't remember his name, but I know he's like trying to develop his own milsim game because he just doesn't feel like there's any competition out there. It's just like 2 or 3 games that are it.
Yeah.
uh,
Like I said, this is basically the only game I play. I have Hell Let Loose as well with like a few hundred hours on it, but I don't really play that too much unless I'm blowing off steam. Really nothing compares to this at all.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to play like I was very out into sort of MMOs, but yeah, now I just sort of dabble in like sometimes in Hell Let Loose, sometimes in Squad, mostly Armor Free, Star Citizen a good bit, but yeah, no, I can really think.
You know, this is a little off topic, but I've found with First Battalion Arma guys, sometimes I'll get into a server like a Hell Let Loose server with just Arma guys. You know, it's like me, Jupiter, and some other people
Sure.
that are either in or have been in First Battalion, and I find we're really good at playing Hell Let Loose, and it's not because we're playing it like a milsim, like we're playing Arma. We're like adapting to the play style of Hell Let Loose, but still like having these fundamental communication skills we brought down.
Yeah.
And I find when that happens, it just makes the game so much more fun. Like we absolutely dominate.
Yeah, like you might not be playing the meta, but you're playing enough of the
Right.
like strategy that it makes sense.
Right. And I find we play it differently than what was it, Second Battalion guys?
Sure.
When I played on their like Trenched in Tuesdays or whatever it is, you know, like they play even different than we do. But when we get together, it's just interesting to see kind of how we compare and contrast like our tactics and stuff.
Yeah.
Not just say we're playing, like I said, we're not playing it like it's Arma. We're playing it like it's Hell Let Loose, but we're playing it in our own way. It's hard to explain.
No, I think
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't play Hell Loose a great deal, but I joined. I saw him grouping up for an operation the other weekend. I said to one of them, I said to it was Slag, and I said to him, I was like, do you need any more people to fill up slots? He was like, yeah, come in. And I did not know how to play that game, so I came in and we're going for like mission, and someone said, oh, can you put up some fortifications? I'm like, oh, and it's like, scroll, you got your hammer? I'm like, yep, I have my hammer. What next? So they just had to baby me just for her to put up these fortifications.
Yeah.
But like it kind of is like a really nice fresh air, breath of fresh air, like to go from like Armor into something like Hell Let Loose, because it's just a big change in the scale. But it's a nice change though.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Burton? What would you change about Milsim Gaming?
Oh man. There's probably going to be a lot of people that don't like this answer, but I'm going to drop it anyways. I think that there's a lot of games out there that you can apply milsim principles to, and there's a lot that you can't.
Sure.
And the one thing that I would change is not trying to force a square peg into a round hole. There's some games like and this isn't to knock the people that actually put work into it and tried to make it work, but there were definitely some things that I would have avoided, like World of Warcraft.
I was about to say the same.
Yeah, World of Warcraft was and then there's yeah, and again, I'm not trying to knock anybody specifically, but like Counter-Strike, for example. That's there's nothing milsim about Counter-Strike.
Totally different.
You know, yeah, if you try to bring milsim into Counter-Strike, you're going to get wiped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, what I would change is just keeping it pure, not trying to force square pegs into round holes, and
Sure.
keeping the tent, the proverbial tent, milsim friendly.
Yeah, because I mean, like most games have their own tactics. Like, yeah, CS:GO has its own tactics, but that's the meta. Like to win. Like, but when you think of the tactics that we were doing, like Held to Loose or Armor Free, like you say, you do that in the CS:GO, you're gonna get absolutely wiped. Like something that can compare in another game, then yeah. But things like World of Warcraft, there's nothing milsim about it. Like, yeah, some games have their own sort of things that you have to do to complete what you're doing, but they don't compare. You'd want something in the cab that can compare with each other. And like you say, when you go from like Bronson, when you say you go from like Armor Free into a game like Hell Loose, you can slightly adapt what you do, but it's on the base level. It is the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say it. Arma 3 is pure milsim.
Yeah,
I don't think you're
Full
wrong.
stop.
I don't think you're wrong.
Like
And I
it
think
invented milsim.
yeah, and I think like the only thing that Arma 3 doesn't do well is PvP, and that's why the PvP games that we do support do so well, because they're basically the best Milsim version of PvP. Like that's why Hell Let Loose is so good. That's why Squad is so good, because they do what Arma's trying to do, but on a PvP level.
I think if you could do so, like how we do like our armor free operations with the size of the player base, I think if you had the same sort of thing on the other team, I think it could. I think armor free PvP can be done well on that retrospect, but a lot of the time it's a lot of PvP you see in armor free is like the wastelands.
Yeah, it's
You know,
just
that sort
not.
of
It's
thing.
just
Like
not there. You know what I
it's
mean?
not, but like if you have like this like the same sort of player base in terms of size, and I think Armor Free PvP can do well. I know the YouTuber Karma does it with like their public like player
Sure.
base,
Yeah.
and then his like Milsim community
Oh,
that he
that's
does.
that's the YouTuber that's making the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bellum. That I think Therian Drake put it in the YouTube chat. Bellum.
All
Yeah.
right.
I
Yeah.
will say PvP versus PvE is a very different dynamic, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Oh
don't know how
yeah.
many of you guys were here. We did Pride of Charlie like 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
where
Oh
it was
yeah.
like Bandit versus Misfit.
It had its ups
And
and downs.
right, there was one side that was upset and one side that was having a lot of fun. Misfit. And the reason is because we approached it differently as
Yeah.
Misfit. Like we knew we were in a milsim, but we also had like violence of action as our number one principle. I remember we had a bunch of rockets like Laws, Moz, AT4s, and we were every single time we respawned, we grabbed one of those things
Yeah.
and we ran toward the front line. And then the guys in Bandit barely had any AT. And we were just shooting AT at buildings, Moz at buildings, mortaring, flattening the entire AOs, which
You were
is not
going
something we would normally do.
you were going classic COD strategy, just big booms.
Exactly. And you know what? It worked.
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I think PvP, like when you're trying to do milsim and PvP, it requires a handshake.
Yeah.
It does. There has to
Because-
be a mutual agreement, otherwise you end up with one side trying to do tactics and
Meta.
fire like
Yeah.
fire control orders and stuff like that, and the other side's just going COD and wiping the floor with you.
I mean,
Yeah.
we were still communicating. We were calling these things in. It was just how we were arming ourselves and how we were.
Yeah.
It was
Sure,
like it was
yeah.
more of a mindset thing than a tactics thing. I think.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember crouch only Call of Duty?
Yeah. I never did it. But yeah, it was good. It was weirdly popular. But it was funny. I actually saw something on Reddit a few months ago about how someone because it was apparently a server that did it. And someone posted on Reddit like they were complaining. They're like why is that a thing? Like that's never going to be popular.
Yeah.
And then someone else commented like that used to be such a popular thing back in the early day. And it's quite funny like how that change happened.
Well, that's the interesting thing is that's how the Cav cut its teeth.
Yeah.
It started out in games like Call of Duty, and they did crouch only, and they had rules laid out where you couldn't sprint unless it was cover to cover, and you couldn't shoot through smoke, and you couldn't pre-fire around corners, and I mean they had all sorts of these different rules that that kept it as milsim as possible. But I mean, I'm going to digress a bit. Arma 3 changed the entire. It changed the game because it was the first to come out with a combined arms platform, and it was completely moddable. So you had the capability to involve different MOSs, whether it's air, whether it's armor, light armor, infantry. You could combine all those on one single game, and as long as you loaded in one person at a time, it wouldn't crash the server. So
Right.
that was Arma 2.
Red light, green light.
Arma,
The origination.
yeah. So the original red light, green light was, one person could load into the game at a time. So load in and of itself would take 30 minutes because we would regularly have between, 80 to 90 people attending ops, and that's if I remember correctly, that was on the lower end. First Battalion was massive. We had all the way through, if I remember correctly, we had Alpha through Echo Company.
Yep.
And it was, Echo Company ended up being its own dedicated heavy weapons company. They were kind of like what the Cav Scouts are now in Bravo Troop.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was Arma 2 just completely revolutionized it, and then you swing around to Arma 3, continued to revolutionize it. Unfortunately, Arma 3 aged. Now it's just it's a lot more complicated maintaining that milsim aspect in a community that's driven by new content.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a challenge that we face for the foreseeable future, at least until Arma 4 comes out. Sorry about that rabbit hole, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I think the combined arms aspect is a big deal of why we're so successful. Like when people ask me that never play Milsim or don't game, and I try to tell them about Arma 3, I go, well, like for example, last week, I'll say I just had a guy who's a Marine at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, teaching me how to call in artillery, exactly how they're teaching him to do it. I'm like, this is, or I have a guy who's a JTAC in real life teaching me how to call in a 9-line airstrike. Like this is what I come for. These things you'll never ever experience in a Call of Duty lobby.
No, yeah,
Ever.
you hear it over the like automated chat when you call in an
Yeah.
airstrike, but you don't actually get to do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with that combined arms, you just get all the different personalities that come with it.
Right.
You got your stick jockeys, you got your tin can drivers, you got
Sure.
your speedsters, you got your your door kickers,
Sneaky breakies.
Right.
yeah, your sneaky breakies. It was just a whole lot of different personalities in one clan.
Yeah.
And,
Right, like the people are interesting. Exactly.
Yeah,
like Jupiter,
exactly.
for example, is teaching me how to do close quarters combat at night. That was like
Yeah.
3 years ago, but to me this was fresh because I'm like, I never have and never will have this experience again.
Yep.
Man,
Yep.
that's
And
such a good
I
point.
mean, the people that cycle through are just, I
Interesting.
mean, some of the best people that you'll ever meet too. On top of interesting, and sometimes, and again, I apologize for this rabbit hole, but there's somebody in the Cav named Hilberg. You guys, everybody knows Hilberg.
Somebody.
The
one and
a
only.
very prominent somebody, the only Hilberg. But he and I didn't have the greatest start. I was Bravo Troop Commander. We, some things ended up happening, and he ended up going to Charlie Company. He found a home in Charlie Company. He thrived in Charlie Company, and now he's a platoon leader in Charlie Company.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have all these different personalities and all these different kind of, I don't want to call them cliques because everybody works together fantastically well, but
It's a culture.
exactly. I mean, if you can't find a home in one company, you'll find it in another, guaranteed.
Sure. Yeah.
100%. I mean, when I first joined, I was sort of dipping in everywhere. I first started in Charlie Company, A1C17, and then I sort of my first enlistment, I just sort of stayed in Charlie for the first while, and then I did a weird stint in Alpha Co for like, I think it was like a month or two, and I realized I was a terrible pilot. I really should have tried to fly before I decided to transfer. Lesson learned. And then I went to Bravo Troop, was a tank commander SL for a little while, and I went to Delta Company Heavy Weapons, and then that was like my first enlistment. And then once I discharged in 2015, came back in 2019. I was like, okay, right, I'll go back to my roots. I'll go back to Charlie Co. And then I started playing like medic, and then I went to Bravo Troop, enlisted in the medical platoon, and since 2020, I've just been medic just for like the last 4 years, and still loving it. I mean, we went from ace to ace pharmacy, and then after I think it was like a push for like a year and a half, I managed to get us cat medical, which again was a game changer. Burton heard my many rants of getting cat medical, didn't you, Burton?
Oh man, I gotta tell you that was yeah, that was interesting.
If you had $1 for
You-
every time, would you be a rich man?
Yeah, I'd be pretty filthy rich throughout my time as first sergeant in Bravo Troop, and then company commander, the battalion XO. Yeah, I would. I'd be a wealthy man.
I think there was many late night rants, wasn't there, from me?
Well, so and honestly, like I'll throw it out there. It was kind of pitched as a way to kind of open the field for more, recruiting more medics, because at the time, I mean, we were super low on medics, and
Sure.
it ended up like I can't say this for certain, but it was a risk worth taking, whether it made the bar too high to gather much interest in it, or whether it made it interesting enough to retain the the medics that we did have. It it was a risk worth taking.
Yeah. That brings me to my last question for you guys, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this. How would you guys describe the 7th Cav in like 3 to 5 words? And you can take turns. I'm just curious because obviously we've covered so much, and there's so many things that like will vary. But how would you each individually describe the Cav in 3 words, 3 to 5 words?
I think the most cheesiest could be like home away from home.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Friendship is a big word. I've made a lot of great friends here that I'll probably have for my whole life.
Yeah.
It's like I said earlier, it's an educational experience. You have people from just all sorts of backgrounds, right? Like not like I was talking about veterans and people who are active in the cab, but there's guys who are like EMTs, EMS.
Yeah.
They teach you interesting things too. Or like guys like I was talking to Talmy about how we both had an old squad leader in Bravo, Sergeant Serrano, and he was like a cop back then.
Yeah.
And he had like very interesting ways of doing close quarter combat, or like one example we had was like naming the windows on different structures by alphabet and number and things
Sure.
like that.
Yeah,
That are
yeah.
just, you'll never hear that from like another from just you'll never get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
why I
something
stick
that
around.
they brought uniquely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever like picture myself not being in the cab. It's like that. It's a weird thing. But
You
I
drank
guess I
too
could
much
just
Kool-Aid, Mako.
the cavade.
The Cavade.
The most
There it is.
wholesome addiction ever.
Ooh,
It
that's
is.
good. That's good.
Yeah, but like when it comes down to it, the cat, you can't really describe the cav. Like it's a very hard because of just how dynamic and just how many different parts there is to it. It's just like it's a weird family where it's the brotherhood, brotherhood, sisterhood. It's So, I hope the Cav is going to be around for many, many, many years to come. I think it will. I don't think the Cav can really go anywhere with the amount of dedication people have. Like, there's people that Burton, you and me, we go back years. We go back at least 10 years now from the days in Charlie Go.
Yep.
So, it's things like that, and me and Burton live across the world.
Sure.
Like we'll probably never even meet. I mean, I'm still.
I mean, you never know.
You never know. I mean, I do. I hope one day we do. I met I met Jarvis way back in the day, like 2014. So we'd only known each other like 2 years, but we still met up. I've met loads of Cav members.
Yeah.
As was said, which is great. I think there was a huge meetup in the US of like 20, 25 people or something.
Yeah, I know a big group of guys from 2-7 did a big meetup. I think you're right. There was like 20 something guys there.
I think we should like organize like a huge like plan for
CavCon?
like 3 years. Yeah, totally. I would totally put money into that. Like like plan it for like 3 years down the road. It could be like a thing that we could host like every 3 or 4 years, just like change each country each time.
That would be pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, Nex.
Yeah.
Can we close this out with a proposition for a new motto for the Cav?
Oh yeah, what's the proposition?
7th Cav. It's like peeing your pants. Everybody can see it happened, but only you can feel its warmth.
Okay. Maybe we'll leave that for the Hilberg episode, the After Dark edition. When he goes off on his rants about who knows
Hold
what.
up. Let me schedule that real quick. Let me get right on that.
Yeah, get on that. Cav Cast After Dark featuring Hilberg.
Oh, no. We need Hilberg, Geki.
Yeah, just all the grade A characters that just spew all the nonsense that makes the Cav like wild at times.
Let's get Caster on here.
Just everybody.
He'll be brilliant.
I wouldn't say nonsense. I mean,
it's not nonsense. It's just like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. They're just so unique, and they're absolute characters, and that is again part of what makes the culture of the Cav so entertaining.
Yeah,
because you don't meet people like that every day. Like only a place like this attracts those individuals.
Audience suggests Westcott, Hilberg, and Geki. I don't know if we can handle that much awesomeness in one podcast.
That'd be good. That's an episode to watch.
Time will tell. Anyways, appreciate you guys coming out and chatting with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for everyone that tuned in to listen. I think the last update that we had from Gray on the charity drive is they're nearing $2,500, which is amazing.
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's still more of the charity drive stream going on, so make sure you guys head over to Twitch and check it out. I did hear from Talamy. He forgot to tell us that he had to work, so that's definitely what happened. We didn't tie him up in the corner or anything crazy like that. That would be crazy. But yeah,
no, that's totally what we did.
He's
I already told the people
he's fine, guys. Wink, wink. All right, he's fine.
He's totally fine.
Appreciate you guys coming out. Mako, Bornstein, Burton, as always. Thank you guys. Until next time, this has been Cav Cast Season 2. This is just the first of many episodes to come. As I said, we got new hosts, new guests, new special features that we'll call them, and we're looking forward to a bright and sunny Season 2. So recurring characters, if you will. All right, you guys have a great night, and thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Night, y'all.
Okay.